Hi, my name is Shay Larkin, and I am a bankruptcy attorney as well as a tenant rights attorney here in San Francisco, California. And one of the things I help my clients with on a regular basis is security deposit disputes. Now, I think landlords often mean well, but may not be familiar with the laws pertaining to security deposits. But I do see a lot of situations where the landlord is taking money that they are not supposed to be when the tenant moves out. Um, I will be making other videos pertaining to security deposits to try to help people with these disputes because not everyone can afford an attorney to help them when their landlord illegally takes their security deposit. And this is the first in a series of videos related to the security deposit that I will be making. Now, the best way to avoid having your landlord take your security deposit at the end of your tenancy when you move out is to plan ahead, and that starts with having a lawyer review the lease agreement before you sign it. You may be surprised what's actually in that agreement. Lease agreements are written for landlords, not tenants, and there are a lot of things landlords throw in there that are not necessarily enforceable by law, but some of the things that are in leases which are enforceable, you'd rather know about before you sign it, because the best time to negotiate the terms of a lease are before you sign it. For example, yesterday I reviewed a lease for someone who is going to be responsible for a large front yard and garden area. She's not a professional landscaper or a professional gardener, and the lease requires that she maintain the garden as consistent with the other gardens in the neighborhood. So that is something that she is going to be negotiating with the landlord before she signs that lease. It could be a lot of work to maintain landscaping and a garden or even a front lawn. And I think that there should be a corresponding adjustment of rent if that is going to be happening on the part of the tenant. All right, continuing on what you can do to try to keep that security deposit when you move out. The first thing you would do is a lease review. What are you responsible for? What are the landlord's responsibilities? The next thing that you want to do is you want to inspect the premises before you move in, ideally. If you can videotape them and take pictures of every room, that would be best. California law requires that the tenant return the unit to the same state of cleanliness as when they first moved in, when they moved out. So I'll say that again. The landlord is entitled to charge whatever is necessary to return the premises to the same state of cleanliness as when the tenant first moved in. So when the tenant moves out, they need to avoid being charged for cleaning. They need to make sure that they clean the premises sufficiently so that they are in the same state of cleanliness as when they first moved in. So what do the premises look like when you first moved in? That's something that you should document, and you should save those videos and photos and checklists. A lot of landlords give their tenants a checklist when the tenant first moves in, and basically they tell the tenant, let us know if anything is wrong. A lot of tenants don't fill those out. You really need to fill those out, and those checklists don't always cover everything. So if there is something amiss, you need to write it into the checklist, and always make sure you communicate with your landlord on everything important in writing. So that means by email or some way that you have proof that you gave the landlord written notice of the issue. So things to watch out for when you first move in, or before you first move in. Ideally, you want to be aware of these things ideally before you move in, not once you moved in and you've started using the premises, because at that point the landlord can blame it on you. So first, again, if you're responsible for the front yard, what does the front yard look like? What is the condition of the plants? Is the yard dry? Are there weeds? What amount of work is the landlord expecting here, and is that reasonable? That is probably something that you're going to want to negotiate if you're responsible for the yard. Going into the house, or even before you go into the house or apartment, what does the front porch look like? What does the base, the doorway? I often see landlords charging for damage to doorways and doors, like chips and wood chips and nicks in the paint. Some of that may be ordinary wear and tear. We can talk a little bit about what is ordinary wear and tear later in this video. But take a picture of the front door, of the doorway, of the walkway area. What is the condition? Is it clean? Is it dirty? Is there any damage? Going into the home or apartment, what is the condition of the carpet? Are there any stains? You need to take pictures of that. Does the carpet look worn? That is something that you definitely want to document. What is the condition of the paint on the walls? Are there no holes or damage at all, or is there some damage to the walls? You want to definitely take note of that. Going into the kitchen, look at the sink. What kind of sink is it? Is it a porcelain sink? You should always protect whatever kind of sink it is with a silicone sink protector, because I can guarantee you the landlord is going to try billing you at the end of your tenancy for any chips in a porcelain sink, which are very expensive to repair, and any scratches to a stainless steel sink. So be careful to document the condition of the sink and the area around the sink. I can't remember what the countertops. Okay, what kind of countertops are there? Are they quartz? Are they marble or some other kind of stone? Are they wood? You need to really, while you're living there, be cognizant that countertops are not, made of steel like Superman. They do scratch and you can inadvertently cause damage. So don't chop your veggies right on the counter. Get a cutting board. And before you move in, you want to take note of what condition the counter is in. Are there stains or scratches or chips? Look at the floor. Is there any damage to the floor? Is there always be cognizant of mold, but look in the corners. Is there dust and mildew or mold in the corners? Are there chips and any tiles? If it's a tile floor, if it's a wood floor, are there any scratches? You can guarantee the landlord is going to blame you for these when you move out. So you need to document them before you move in. How clean is the refrigerator? I've even had landlords charge for dust buildup behind the refrigerator. So see what is the situation, if you can, behind the refrigerator. You may not be able to see that area. Are all the lights working? They're going to bill you for burned out light bulbs, and they're going to say you broke the light switch if it's not operable. So you need to make sure all the lights are working. Look at the cupboards. Do the cupboards open and close properly? Is there any damage to the hinges? Are the cupboards dusty? Because you can be sure the landlord is going to blame any any dust that you leave behind, or that was left behind when you first moved in. They're going to blame you for that and charge you for cleaning. So how dirty did they leave the cupboards? If you can see the top of the cupboards, is that also dirty or dusty? Look at all the windows in the apartment. Are they operable? If they are not operable, you absolutely need to tell the landlord right away. That's the landlord's responsibility to maintain the windows, and see how clean the window sills are. What condition are the curtains in? Landlords always bill for window issues and windowsill dirt and dirt on blinds. So if the blinds are, do the blinds work? If there are any issues with blind operation, or if they are dirty or dusty, you got to document that, because the landlord is going to charge you for that later. Plumbing, how does the plumbing work? Are there any leaks? When you turn on the hot water, is it cold? When you turn on the cold water, is it hot? That's a safety issue. Who does the landlord want to be responsible for the plumbing? That is something I typically see landlords trying to push off on tenants in the lease. California law requires that landlords maintain the plumbing in proper working order. But look at what they're trying to say in your lease. That will indicate to you whether there's going to be a dispute about plumbing later on or even during your tenancy. Okay, what else? We talked about flooring, carpets, the condition of the walls, windows, the cleanliness of the apartment. That's something that the landlord is going to try to blame you for later. So you want to be able to say at the end of your tenancy that you returned it to the same state of cleanliness as when you moved in. Now, ordinary wear and tear is separate from cleanliness. You need to leave the premises in the same condition of repair as when you first moved in, except for ordinary wear and tear. Ordinary wear and tear means the damage that occurs over time through regular use. So, wear and tear to carpet, stains, probably depending on how big they are, may or may not be ordinary wear and tear. But snags that can occur in a carpet over time, ordinary wear and tear. Scuffing on walls, if you can clean it. But if it's fading of paint, that's ordinary wear and tear. The landlord should not charge for ordinary wear and tear. But what constitutes ordinary wear and tear is determined by how long you live in the premises. So if it's a 6-month lease, there shouldn't really be that much ordinary wear and tear. I'm going to do another video strictly on ordinary wear and tear and what constitutes ordinary wear and tear. But for the time being, just know that this would be not intentional damage or, not negligence. So if you damage a cabinet by slamming it, it breaks the hinge, that's probably not ordinary wear and tear. Normal use means closing the cabinet door gently, and over time, the hinge might get loose depending on how long you live in the premises. So that's ordinary wear and tear. But if you are damaging by slamming the window shut and it breaks, that's not ordinary wear and tear. Big stain on the carpet, probably not ordinary wear and tear. Holes in walls from hanging pictures, a tenant is allowed to make their house their home. That means small nail holes that are consistent with hanging posters and pictures. That would normally be considered ordinary wear and tear, but you want to try to avoid disputes later on. So if your landlord has a specific way that they want you to hang your pictures, such as by those adhesive strips that you can attach to walls that don't cause damage, find out by looking at the lease first, what the landlord expects as far as nails in the walls. So some leases say no nails at all without the landlord's express written consent. So you want to try to avoid disputes later and always get written permission from your landlord for any alterations to the premises whatsoever, because the landlord will later blame you for it. So anything important should be in writing. So things I typically see tenants getting charged for at the end of their lease. Again, I've seen chips in porcelain sinks. I've seen cracks in tile, scratches in hardwood floors, damage caused by pets, damaged blinds. They shouldn't charge for minor damage to walls, because depending on how long you live there, that's ordinary wear and tear, but I've seen them try to charge for that. They always try to charge for cleaning. They should not charge for cleaning when you have left the premises clean, but there might be an argument that they can if you got the premises in pristine condition and there are still some items that you leave behind that need to be cleaned, like dust along the windowsill or in the cupboards. What else? Like I said, damage to doors, damage to baseboards. Always dry up any water in the bathroom as soon as possible, not only to prevent mold and mildew, but because it causes damage to the walls and You just don't want to be billed for that later. But again, documentation is key. Document, document, document. If your landlord doesn't give you a checklist before you move in, you can create your own checklist and make your own video of the premises and have a lease reviewed by an attorney to find out what exactly the landlord expects you to be responsible for. Again, it might not be legally, it might not be legally enforceable, but it's best if you can avoid disputes later on by perhaps negotiating those illegal terms out of the lease in an addendum or in a revised lease. All right, this is a kind of a long video, 15 minutes. Hopefully I've given you some good information. I'm going to be making, well, I'm striving to make a new video every week, and my next video will be on what is in your lease. I'm going to talk about those terms, surprise terms that I typically see in a lease, and what these mean in practical matters. What if the landlord really enforces that term? What does this mean potentially for you down the road during your tenancy? Thanks for watching, and best wishes to all of you with your landlord.